Not a joke, not politics. That's the line lawmakers are drawing, and they're not backing down. Because what's unfolding right now isn't just another heated government session or a passing controversy you scroll past and forget. This is something heavier, something that cuts straight into the core of power, accountability, and the limits of leadership. The impeachment case against Vice President Sara Duterte is no longer just talk, it's moving. It's real, and the people handling it are making one thing very clear. They're not here to perform, they're here to decide. It all picked up momentum again on March 4th.
The chair shall address the Committee on Justice. Today is March 4. We reconvene the Committee on Justice on our third day of official deliberations on the impeachment complaints against Vice President Sara Duterte.
When the Committee on Justice resumed its hearings, not the first day, not even the second, this was already the third round of intense deliberations, and by that point, the tone had shifted. Less noise, more focus, less speculation, more scrutiny. Out of 4 original complaints, the field has already narrowed. One didn't make it past procedural checks, another was pulled back. That alone says something. This process is already filtering itself, stripping away anything that doesn't hold up.
We are here to uphold the Constitution.
What's left is what lawmakers believe deserves real attention. They've already gone through the third complaint. Now all eyes are on the fourth. And here's where things start to feel serious. Because the allegations being examined aren't small. They're not technicalities or minor slip-ups.
Fear they can destabilize institutions. Yes, there were references.
We're talking about claims of misuse of confidential funds, unexplained wealth, bribery, even actions that could potentially shake the very structure of constitutional order. These aren't the kind of accusations you just brush aside. Lawmakers are digging into documents, affidavits, financial records, pieces of evidence that when put together start forming a picture. Not a complete one yet, but enough to raise eyebrows, enough to demand answers. And during one moment that stood out, a lawmaker made a statement that hit harder than expected.
Characterized as an admission of contracting an assassin. However, even assuming hypothetical admission of the pleaded facts, the complaint does not set forth the essential elements of an indictable offense.
He said, responsibility cannot be divided. Think about that for a second. In positions of power, there's often a tendency to spread accountability, to say this part belonged to someone else, or that decision came from another office. But his message was simple. Leadership doesn't work like that. You don't get to separate the title from the responsibility that comes with it. One official, one responsibility. No gray areas. But maybe the most controversial part of all this isn't even the financial allegations. It's the words. Statements that were made publicly, statements some people initially brushed off as jokes, just comments, nothing serious. Except lawmakers aren't buying that. They pushed back, hard. Because when someone in a high office speaks, especially with threats or sensitive matters, those words don't exist in a vacuum. They carry weight. They influence people. They create reactions, sometimes fear, sometimes tension, sometimes distrust. And that's exactly the concern being raised. Can something really be just a joke when it comes from someone with that level of authority? Or does it become something else entirely? That question is hanging in the air, and it's not going away anytime soon. Throughout the hearings, there's been a consistent effort to keep things grounded. Lawmakers keep repeating the same idea. This is not about imagination, not about rumors, not about what people feel or assume. It's about what can be proven, what holds up, what meets the constitutional standard. And that brings us to the real turning point in all of this. Because impeachment isn't about proving someone guilty in the way a court does. It's not about prison sentences or legal penalties, at least not at this stage. It's about something more immediate, more political in nature, but still deeply rooted in law. It asks a different question. Not, did this person commit a crime beyond reasonable doubt, but is this person still fit to hold office? That's the standard. That's the line. Supporters of the complaint are pointing to several key concerns to justify moving forward. They're talking about discrepancies in declared assets, numbers that don't quite align the way they should. They're pointing at rapid spending of large amounts of public funds, raising questions about where the money went and how it was used. And then there are testimonies, statements from individuals suggesting that certain financial activities didn't follow the expected rules. Individually, each of these might raise suspicion. Together, they create pressure, and that pressure is exactly what the Committee of Justice is now dealing with. But here's where it gets even interesting. There's been a clear effort to separate this entire process from politics.
In conclusion, rather than pleaded ultimate facts, and is insufficient in substance. I so manifest. Thank you.
Now, whether people believe that or not is another conversation entirely, but the lawmakers themselves are insisting this isn't about elections, rivalries, or future power plays. They're framing it as something bigger, a test of whether the system actually works the way it's supposed to. Because if allegations like these are ignored, if they're dismissed without proper examination, then what message does that send? That power protects itself? That certain positions are beyond scrutiny? That accountability has limits depending on who you are? Those are dangerous ideas, and that's exactly what lawmakers say they're trying to avoid. They're not just looking at a person, they're looking at the principle behind the office. And as these deliberations continue, the task in front of them becomes clearer, but not easier. They have to decide whether the evidence on the table is strong enough to move forward, not emotionally strong, not politically convenient, but constitutionally sufficient. That's the weight of the decision. Because once it moves forward, there's no pretending this is just another headline. It becomes something bigger, something that will shape not just careers, but the direction of governance itself. And maybe the most powerful statement made during these hearings wasn't even about the evidence, or the accusations, or even the vice president. It was about history. One lawmaker said, in essence, that history won't judge them based on how comfortable they felt making this decision. It will judge them based on whether they upheld the Constitution. That's the real pressure. That's what's at stake. So now everything comes down to what happens next. Will the evidence be enough? Will the case move forward, or will it stop here? Either way, this isn't something that just fades away quietly, because moments like this, they leave a mark. And the way it's handled will say a lot about the system, the leaders, and the future. Now I'm curious, do you think this process is truly about accountability, or is there more happening behind the scenes?